It all started with my peaches. Sweet, sun-kissed, flawless peaches grown from a tree my grandmother planted decades ago. They were the pride of my garden and the envy of the block, until the HOA decided they were community property. Yes, you heard that right. These clowns in blazers actually claimed the fruits growing inside my backyard fence were accessible green assets, per some clause buried deep in the neighborhood handbook. And the worst part? They started showing up to take them. Not ask, take, like it was their birthright. Welcome to Prodigy Tales. Make sure you like and subscribe for your top-notch HOA drama. It started with a few missing apples. I figured maybe a raccoon. Then one morning, I caught Marcia, the HOA secretary and self-proclaimed fruit rights advocate, waltzing into my backyard like she owned the place. Basket in hand, big sun hat, not a care in the world. When I stepped out and asked her what the hell she thought she was doing, she blinked and said, "Oh, this tree technically leans past the shared airspace line." Huh, what in the HOA gibberish hell was that even supposed to mean? The next week, my grapes were gone, the whole vine stripped bare. That time, it was Rodney, the HOA treasurer with a weak mustache and a weaker spine, who got caught red-handed. He dropped the bag of grapes and bolted like a cartoon character when I turned on the sprinklers. I emailed the HOA with security cam footage. Their response? Fruit-bearing plants in proximity to the common walking path may be harvested as a courtesy to the community. Oh, we were going to play that game? I started posting signs. Private property, no trespassing, I know karate. The signs were ripped down. I filed a complaint. They fined me for unauthorized signage and told me to check my tone. Check my tone? These looters were stealing my food and gaslighting me into thinking it was some kind of neighborhood duty to let them do it. They got bolder after that. They'd saunter through the yard, clipboards in one hand, peaches in the other. It became a routine. Monday, grapes. Thursday, tomatoes. Saturday, peaches, if any were left. I found bite marks on a watermelon still growing on the vine. Not an animal. Someone had actually bitten into it and left it. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I put up a camera, again, this time with motion tracking, night vision, and auto upload to the cloud. The very next night, the president of the HOA, Clarence, the self-important dinosaur who thinks he's the sheriff of the suburb, was caught on film hurling my scarecrow out of the way to reach the back fence where the berries grow. It was surreal. He even looked both ways before stuffing blueberries into his pockets. My neighbors? They thought it was hilarious. Well, at least you know your fruit is top tier, one of them joked. But I wasn't laughing. I was done. That's when the plans started forming. Something elegant, legal, and just the right amount of petty. By the time August rolled around, the HOA's late-night fruit raids were practically part of the evening news. I had footage, timestamps, a Google Drive folder titled The Great Produce Heist, and enough evidence to put a squirrel colony on trial. But HOA Karen and her stooges didn't just keep stealing, they started gaslighting the entire neighborhood. According to their latest newsletter, the Community Garden Initiative is thriving thanks to the generosity of select homeowners. Select homeowners? That was me? Generous? Try robbed blind. I decided to test just how far they'd go. I left a perfectly ripe cantaloupe right on the edge of the garden bed, smack in camera view, and sprayed it with ghost pepper extract. That evening, I sat on the porch with a lemonade and waited. Sure enough, Rodney slinked in like a meth-addicted raccoon. He picked it up, took a giant bite right out of it, and let out a noise I can only describe as a donkey being exercised. The footage of him sprinting to his car, drooling, and screaming was saved under Rodney Ghost Pepper Incident.mp4. The best part? He had the audacity to send a complaint saying something toxic had been left on public fruit. The next HOA meeting was a disaster. Karen opened the floor with her usual smugness, hair wrapped tighter than a mummy's ego. "Let's discuss boundary cooperation," she said, side-eyeing me the entire time. I raised my hand. "Sure. Let's discuss boundaries, specifically the ones around my property you keep ignoring." That triggered a 10-minute scream match that ended with Clarence slamming a gavel on a folding table and yelling, "The bylaws are clear." Oh, I'd read the bylaws, all 84 pages of them, cover to cover. The only thing clear was that these people were twisting words harder than a pretzel at Oktoberfest. But something interesting caught my eye on page 73, subsection C. HOA claims of shared property do not extend beyond the limits of physical community-maintained landscaping. Translation: my private fenced-in garden wasn't even close to their jurisdiction. They'd been operating on imaginary authority. Still, HOA Karen doubled down. "We're considering issuing you a citation for aggressive fencing practices," she snapped. "Your cucumbers are hostile." Hostile cucumbers. I almost burst out laughing. These people were beyond satire. That week, things escalated. Someone left a handwritten note in my mailbox. "If you don't want your fruit shared, maybe move to a farm." No signature, no envelope, just arrogance marinated in entitlement. The next night, my gate was left open. My dog got out. Thankfully, a neighbor found him 3 blocks down chasing a raccoon, but that was it. They weren't just stealing anymore, they were provoking. So I printed out pictures of every single fruit thief caught on cam, labeled them "wanted" for produce piracy, and taped them on my fence. They tore them down. I taped them up again. A battle of wills, a war of pettiness, a fruit feud for the ages. But something needed to give. They were clearly never going to stop. And I was sick of playing defense. If they wanted a community garden, then I'd give them a community garden with a surprise baked in. It all came to a head one humid Friday evening when I caught Clarence elbow deep in my strawberries, muttering to himself like a deranged fruit sommelier. I shouted, "Caught you again, berry bandit." He didn't even flinch, just turned, mouth full, and had the nerve to say, "These taste better when you know they're communal." I recorded the whole thing. He wiped his mouth with a monogrammed handkerchief, waved like I was paparazzi, and walked off like a man who still believed he was a pillar of society. The neighborhood was getting split. Team HOA and Team Sanity. On one side, a small pack of board loyalists who probably dreamt of bylaws. On the other, everyone else who was sick of the nonsense. Mr. Delgado from down the street said, "You should press charges." Mrs. Khan offered to help me build a fruit turret. I think she meant it as a joke, but I saw real plans sketched out on her patio. By now, my warning signs had multiplied like rabbits. Warning: trespassers will be filmed and roasted online. Private property, touch the tomatoes and find out. Smile, you're about to go viral. But it didn't stop them. If anything, it made them sneakier. Karen showed up in a trench coat at 10 p.m., crawling through bushes like a low-budget spy thriller. She tripped over a sprinkler and landed in the compost bin. I couldn't stop laughing, and yes, that video got 10,000 views on my private Instagram in 24 hours. But I needed something more, something to hit where it hurt. So I went shopping. I bought 6 solar-powered floodlights, a motion-activated speaker that played a foghorn blast, and a surplus warning siren from a local junkyard. I installed decoy cameras in every tree. Then I layered the actual security system. Infrared, real-time alerts, the works. My backyard looked like a high-security embassy. Still, I knew they'd come back, because they couldn't help themselves. So I spent one weekend laying out my masterpiece, an electric fence kit I'd bought from a farming supply store 3 towns over. Legal, small voltage, animal safe, but human humbling. The kind used to keep deer out of vegetable gardens. I disguised it cleverly, thin wires woven through decorative lattice panels invisible in the dark. I tested it myself with a glove. It buzzed, just enough to startle, just enough to make a full-grown HOA member scream like a cartoon. Then I mounted my final weapon, a hidden GoPro, perfectly placed to capture every inch of incoming humiliation. Not that they'd know, not yet. That night, I went to bed with a wicked grin. It was bait time, ripe peaches, low-hanging, practically begging to be stolen. That night was too perfect. The moon was high, the cicadas were buzzing like they were on payroll, and I had a fresh pitcher of lemonade waiting beside me. I even had popcorn ready. My living room looked like a private screening theater because I had every camera feed projected on my TV. Showtime. At exactly 10:42 p.m., like the punctual pests they were, the Board of Thieves made their entrance. Karen led the charge with her usual stank face, clutching a canvas tote bag like she was shopping at Whole Foods. Clarence waddled behind her, flashlight in hand, looking like he was breaking into Area 51. Rodney brought gloves this time. At least he was evolving. Too bad none of them brought common sense. Karen whispered loudly, "Let's be quick. He's probably asleep drooling in front of the History Channel. Joke's on her." I was wide awake, drooling in anticipation. They tiptoed through the shadows, sticking to the far side of the garden where I'd planted the decoy fruit. It was a trap within a trap. Plastic apples with bug repellent sprayed all over. While they puzzled over the lack of scent, Clarence took a step back. That's when he brushed the wire. A loud zzz cracked through the night, followed by Clarence's high-pitched yelp that could have shattered glass. He flailed like he'd been slapped by a thundercloud, tripped over a rake, and landed in the herb patch. Karen turned, startled, and shouted, "What happened?" Then she stepped back. Zap! She screamed and fell on top of Clarence, now thrashing in basil and shame. Rodney, startled, dropped his flashlight and ran, straight into the lattice fence. Zap, zap! The fence buzzed like a swarm of angry bees. He howled, flailed backward, and landed right in the compost bin. Second time that week. And me? I was howling, laughing so hard I choked on a popcorn kernel. My speakers caught every ow, every scream, every frantic apology to the fruit gods. Then Karen slipped trying to crawl away, smacked into the tomato trellis, and knocked it over with a crunch. She let out a dramatic gasp like she'd been hit with a sniper round. Eventually, the alarm sirens I rigged started wailing. The floodlights came on. It was a full Las Vegas show out there. They all froze, blinking in the brightness like stunned deer. And just when it couldn't get worse for them, the motion-activated speaker blared, "Smile! You're trespassing, and the internet is watching!" They scrambled to their feet like toddlers who'd just broken Mom's favorite vase and limped out of my yard with their dignity sparking behind them. I sat back, clapped, and watched the footage play again in slow-mo. I edited the whole thing with dramatic music and cinematic zooms. Then I uploaded it, anonymously of course, into the neighborhood group chat, my YouTube page, and 3 HOA watchdog forums. By morning, the community was on fire with laughter. Memes exploded. The Zap pack became a running joke. Someone printed out freeze frames and pasted them on light poles. One resident offered me homemade pie just to shake my hand. Another handed me a thank you card labeled Defender of the Orchard, but the best was yet to come. By dawn, the neighborhood wasn't just laughing, it was in full-on riotous celebration. My phone buzzed nonstop. People were sending screenshots, remixing the footage with theme songs from slapstick cartoons, and dropping Zapcam gifs like confetti. Somebody made a parody trailer called Fruit Wars, HOA Shock Edition. Even the elderly couple across the street, who never even smiled in the 5 years I'd lived here, gave me a proud thumbs up from their porch. At the HOA's monthly meeting, which I attended out of pure, unfiltered spite, the usual stiff silence was replaced with suppressed giggles and awkward throat clears. Karen showed up wearing a turtleneck in 90-degree weather, sunglasses indoors, and the kind of energy that said, "I'd rather be anywhere else but here." She didn't speak a word. Neither did Clarence. Rodney had a bruise on his forehead and what looked like tomato pulp stuck in his collar. I waited till the very end of the meeting, then stood up and asked, "So, quick question. Is my garden still within shared jurisdiction, or have we retired that fairy tale?" No one answered. Karen shuffled her papers like they might magically erase her memory. I smirked and added, "Because I have about 50,000 views on my garden security footage and counting. Just want to make sure I give credit to the right stars." Silence. Sweet, sizzling, shame-coated silence. Afterward, HOA members started resigning one by one. The group chat was full of popcorn emojis. One brave soul even suggested we rename the community newsletter to the Weekly Zap. The power had shifted, and for once, the neighborhood belonged to the residents, not the tin pot tyrants with clipboards and imaginary authority. The best part? I got invited to speak at the next community block party, not about gardening, about home security and dealing with HOA overreach. I didn't hold back. I explained the camera setup, the bait garden layout, the legality of the fence, and how you're allowed to defend your property, as long as you're not aiming to harm, just educate. But wait, it got even better. A local news segment picked up the footage. They ran it with the title, "Local Man Electrifies HOA Bullies," literally. A minor viral legend was born. My subscriber count exploded overnight. One guy offered me a sponsorship to review electric fences. I declined, but I did take the free grill. Karen? Oh, she vanished. No more trench coat missions, no more midnight tomato heists. Word was she moved to a quieter part of town where people still feared her clipboard. Clarence stopped showing up to meetings entirely. And Rodney? Poor guy accidentally became a meme and started wearing disguises in public. As for me, I extended the electric fence and planted a whole new section of crops just to celebrate watermelons, cantaloupe, maybe even grapes. And right at the entrance, I hung a new sign: Warning, touch my fruit and get zapped into internet history. Because justice, when served with a side of voltage and a viral soundtrack, tastes better than any fruit you could ever steal. The end. Please like and subscribe for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think Karen got what she deserved? Comment below.